Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, episode number 45 today for the Monaco Grand Prix in Season 3. And since it is Monaco, the jewel in the Formula 1 calendar, I thought we'd do a special one-off livery for the Monaco Grand Prix for the streets and the Principality. So we're going to switch things up and invert them a little bit as we go from Coca-Cola to Coke Zero. A lot of you wanted me to do at some point a special Coke Zero livery, essentially the inverted colours of the base livery that we've got. We've now got the red stripes all over the car. The base is in a very mean, slightly off, kind of not pure black, sort of slightly grey, as it is with the Coke Zero can design a couple of years ago. They've changed them every single year. I should know, because I drink a lot of Coke Zero in my household, but they've changed the design a lot over the years, but I've gone with this one where they have the red stripe. And around the streets of Monaco, I think this is going to look pretty mean. The rest of it kind of almost like monotone. Obviously, we've got the DHL on the front wing now gone from yellow and red to just monotone black and white to kind of match the rest of it. So it's almost like a Dark Knight sort of livery version of our base livery. Last season I did a one-off livery for the Monaco GP. It wasn't as different as this one is, I think, to the base livery that we're running, but it was still a kind of somewhat a one-off livery, and that didn't go so well for us. We kind of jinxed ourselves a little bit. If you remember, season 2 at Monaco was probably one of the most horrendous races we've had in terms of, damage, crashes, things going wrong for us. We were backwards at the hairpin. We had pretty much every kind of damage under the sun. Front wing damage, rear wing damage, floor damage. So yeah, it just wasn't great. So we're hoping to come back to this circuit and kind of start on a fresh page, if you will. And we come to Monaco, obviously, after a very successful Spanish Grand Prix. If you didn't see that, by the way, be sure to go check that one out, because spoiler alert, it went on to be a very, very good race, and we actually ended up winning our first race of this season with what I thought was a very bit of clever driving in the end. The last stint, controlling that race with, Leclerc in second place, making sure he was in the DRS to make sure Verstappen, who was really the real threat of the entire race, the faster man on the two-stop, was able to, be halted up basically in third place. So a really clever drive from us, and it gets us right back into it, 2 points behind Lando Norris. Still early days, of course, in the season, only 4 rounds gone, so I'm not really focusing too much on the standings quite yet, but it's nice to get a win under our belt a bit earlier in the season. Obviously, it took us till the French Grand Prix in Season 2 to get our first ever win on this game, and now this time round, the first win of the season comes 4 rounds in at Spain, and after a difficult one at Portimao, of course. So really nice to actually elevate ourselves up to there after a difficult race at Portugal and bounce back so well. So hopefully we can bounce back in terms of the poor memories from Monaco in Season 2, if you will, and take the momentum we got from Catalonia. We saw there in the activity timeline, we just took a dilemma that we gained some extra acclaim level. I could have taken some extra R&D points, but I'd rather get the acclaim, because at this stage I think we're going to need some money as well, because we're not really earning that much that quickly compared to our AI rivals. So taking the acclaim, because we're still on the journey to level 25 on the acclaim, which unlocks some extra sponsorship for us. But what is going to come in, though, we may not be spending R&D. What has come in, though, are the 2 R&D upgrades we actually purchased before. So that's the DRS upgrade, so our aero now is fully maxed out, and then also we had a chassis upgrade, so that's going to be quite useful around Monaco. The weight redistribution, trying to, make that weight balance a little bit easier on us as we go through the corners. Obviously, not just to Monaco, but now permanently for other circuits. But Monaco, it will be very useful, I think. It's good timing that upgrade's come in now. And with that upgrade, it means on paper now, we are back into first place on the standings, ahead of Mercedes just by pixel. You can see it's so close between ourselves, Merc, Ferrari, and McLaren. Red Bull still lagging behind, but we saw Verstappen actually improved quite a lot at Spain, obviously, in his charge towards us. So at Monaco, generally quite good for Red Bull usually. Maybe they'll go well. You can see Aston Martin, though, they've made massive gains. They're almost where Alpine are, and Alpine only just started showing up. We saw George Russell doing very well to actually keep Lando quite honest at Spain. So could that be Aston Martin back in the fight for points regularly, maybe, from this race onwards? We'll see. That's a very quick recovery from their deficit over the winter, and that, horrendous for their sake, the patch that came in that really nerfed them quite badly in Season 2. Very surprised to see how quickly they've gained pace then. They must have had quite a lot of cash then and R&D saved up maybe, and they've kind of all spent it in one go in towards this Grand Prix. So let's see if that continues then. But we're into Q1 then. All sunny at the moment. I say at the moment though because there is again forecast for rain for this Sunday race at Monaco, and I'm already getting PTSD flashbacks from Season 2 at Monaco with the rain there. I'm really hoping we don't have a repeat, anywhere near of a repeat of Season 2's Monaco Grand Prix for our sake, but there is rain on the way for Sunday, but it should be all dry here, which may be good news for our team because Mick Schumacher is showing some really great pace at the moment, fastest in Q1, so maybe showing that, you know, at this circuit we are maybe actually legitimately going to be the fastest car around here, which would be quite amazing. And so can we try and do a good job in the remaining qualifying sessions to get right up to the sharp end? The first kind of hurdle is getting through into Q2 now. My DRS failed on me in that first run, so we've gone again. We're on the bubble, P9 only here, so Schumacher was showing some great pace in our car in Q1, but in Q2 I am now having to go for a second run, burn a second set of soft tyres to try and get through into the top 10 shootout. Now I thought that was a pretty horrendous section for myself on that run, but I actually gained time there by drifting through and using quite a bit of the curb there, and in the end we gained about 7/10 to get us through into Q3 thankfully, so we can breathe and relax. Verstappen through. Russell looking very good in the Alpine. He's up in P2 there, only 2/10 behind Max Verstappen, and his teammate meanwhile is 1.4 off Verstappen, knocked out there. So Russell is doing an individual amazing job in the Alpine to drag that car up all the way there. The two Mercedes cars struggling a little bit, and Lando Norris gets through, but Ricciardo way down the order, and he doesn't set a lap time for some reason. Don't know what went on there, but Lando's the only one solo flying the flag for McLaren then as we enter the top 10 shootout. We've already done one lap on a scrub set of soft tyres here at this moment in time, so we're at the very end of this session. The checkered flag has fallen. We're on the second run, and you can see on the top right how, you know, much slower we were on that first run on the worn tyres. So this is the first and only fresh set I've got for Q3. Neutral gear used into Raskas there as we try to slow down the car desperately, losing a bit of time compared to our Delta across the line. About 7/10 or 6.5 gain there, I think that was. And in the end, it's actually a bit of a shocking finishing position compared to where you would have thought we had been if you look at the R&D graph. And that just kind of shows the R&D chart is not always entirely a good way to really know the pecking order, because the AI, the driver can make the difference. Obviously at Monaco, the driver makes a massive difference here. And so we're down in P9. Schumacher does really well, I would say, in P5 there. But some very quick lap times from Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris. Those two, obviously, they're, you know, 1 and 3 in the championship right now. So they're being the most consistent qualifiers and at the sharp end there. But George Russell, we've got to talk about him doing an amazing job. Only 1/10 off pole position at Monaco in an Alpine, and his teammate got knocked out in Q2. That's an amazing job by Russell in that car. For us though, P9, the opposite. Not a great job. We didn't even get close to matching Schumacher really, so we have to do better in the race, but it's tough. You know, in the dry, it'd be tough to do better in the race, let alone in the rain, because rain is on the way. This could be a difficult Monaco Grand Prix. Let's hope it's not as difficult as Season 2 was though. Let's go to the grid.
Formula One returns to Monte Carlo once again today, home to the world-famous Monte Carlo Casino, first opened in 1863. And, of course, a certain road race, first held here in 1929. There's no greater an occasion, no more valuable a win than the Monaco Grand Prix. We already see the lowest average speeds of the season here at the Circuit de Monaco, and they'll be even lower in the difficult conditions today. 19 corners make up this famous 2-mile track, and with the rain, it'll be even harder than usual to get that critical heat into the tyres. Don't be surprised if we see a safety car at some point during the Grand Prix. Joining me on this very wet day is a man who's no stranger to driving in miserable conditions. Anthony Davidson, you've driven open cockpit, you've driven sports cars. How does the wet weather experience change between the different disciplines?
Well, I wouldn't say there's much difference in all honesty. You know, besides the terrifying closing speeds you find in sports cars with the different categories all sharing the same track, driving in the rain is, well, driving in the rain. Of course, the biggest difference between the two is the closed cockpit versus the open cockpit. You get the luxury of staying dry in the sports car, but if your screen ever gets dirty, well, that's a pit stop, not just wiping your visor or pulling away a tear off. But most of the time, they're both as miserable as each other, to be honest.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. An immense lap from Carlos Sainz yesterday puts him in pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Hamilton, Mick Schumacher and Leclerc, Verstappen, Bottas, the owner driver and Fernando Alonso, Ocon, Gasly, Callum Ilott and Stroll, Joe, Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda and Nikita Mazepin, Giovinazzi, Matsushita, Lundgaard and Nicholas Latifi. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So once again, for a second season in a row, we are met with a very wet Monaco circuit for the race here on Sunday. Everyone on the wet compound, the blue wall tyre. But I was looking at the race strategy. I was doing the usual kind of bring down the fuel, and it's going to get to dry at the end. You can see there it's going to be sunny by the end of the race. So we will be on slicks by the end of this race, which is good news for me because I prefer that, to be honest. It's just kind of survival mode, honestly, in the kind of wet period around Monaco for me every time. But the thing is, the icons here on the wet period, they only indicate for inters. Like, that's the inters one. The bottom right, that icon is for full wet, but the indication right now on the forecast there is the kind of, light rain period, not the heavy rain, the kind of monsoon weather that I kind of liken it to, because on this year's game, the heavy rain really is, there's a lot of spray, but that's indicating light rain, but everyone is on the full wet, so I wonder if it's maybe at the moment as the race starts, wet enough for the, full wet compound blue wall tyre, but we're going to quickly get to intermediates. And if we are, that's got me thinking here, why don't we just start on intermediates, Do the F1 Esports Jarno Pogmir strategy and just start on intermediate. It makes a lot of sense, because if that's the game is indicating it is intermediates. It's just the AI are not sending it and going on to inters, because it might be, 1 pixel on the weather forecast, into heavy rain, and it's so tiny that they've just not bothered to put the icon of heavy rain at the start of that kind of little bar at the top there. So I reckon let's go on inters. We're allowed to switch to inters. We've got no warning about it. Let's switch to it. Our engineer may, shout at us at the start, but I want to risk it. I want to risk it and try and see if this is gonna be a 200 IQ strategy play. And like in Spain, can we try and be the smartest man on the grid and try and catapult ourselves to the forefront of the race later on? It's gonna be a very tricky start. Make no mistake about it. Going into it's a risky strategy, but if we can just about survive the first part of this race, we may be in the money. So here we go then to 5 red lights to the Monaco Grand Prix on intermediates when everyone else is on full wet tyres. 5 red lights are out and we're underway, and it's a pretty okay start actually compared to Valtteri Bottas there. He's trying to cut across us a little bit. We actually send it down the inside there, finding okay grip under braking, but then on the exit Bottas is going to get us. Carlos Sainz gets away and in first place, Lando Norris second, George Russell still in third place in the Alpine. Bottas does re-overtake us, not a massive surprise on the traction up the hill, and Jeff, my engineer, is still asking me to immediately switch back to a wet compounded tyre, making a lap 1 pit stop. It's not happening, Jeff. We're going for it. We're going for the risk here, but Carlos Sainz of the Ferrari still leads the way then off the pole position he got yesterday on Saturday, looking good right now ahead of Lando. It's going to be quite, single file though. It's very hard to overtake around Monaco, let alone in wet conditions. So I think the only man looking to make moves maybe in the first few laps here may be ourselves, as I'm hoping the track starts to lean towards just light rain. Right now, it very much is heavy rain. The full wet tyres are the quicker tyre. But if I can just sit here in P9, not lose too much time to Bottas, if I can hold my own in my own position in P9, we're eventually going to get to this point here on lap number 4. Nice segue there. Very nice timing, where we're now starting to set personal best lap times. I did fall away. I was about 1 second behind Bottas, but now we're back in within half a second of him, and we've just set our best lap time now on lap number 4. So the track is coming towards us and it is now time for the intermediates, I think. Right now, the whole grid is too stubborn to pit yet, but it is time for intermediates. It's the quicker tyre. Even if Jeff, my engineer, doesn't think so, because he's going to come on radio, I think, into this hairpin and ask me to change strategy again to the full wet tyres, but I'm not having it. We are quicker now. We're gaining some time on Bottas, and we may even fancy a move sooner rather than later. It is all the same in terms of the pecking order since the beginning of this race. Sainz from Norris, Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Schumacher, Verstappen, and then Bottas is the man we're chasing, losing a little bit of time through the tunnel, but then gaining quite a lot under braking here, and Bottas is just looking a bit nervous on the full wets, and he's really slow off that corner. We've had a great exit, and with a bit of ERS down the inside, but now side by side into the next left-hander, into swimming pool, and we're going to make a move round the outside. We've pulled it off as we enter the chicane, and we're up into P8. We've overtaken Bottas, and now we've got some clean air to chase after Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, and you're going to see how much good use the clean air is going to do. The dirty air from Bottas was actually affecting me a lot more than you'd think in these conditions and in the situation we're in. But here you go then, lap 7 immediately, purple, and we are the fastest man on circuit. This is the quickest tyre, yet no one is coming in yet. So we've played this perfectly. We've played Formula 1 chess on the biggest stage at Monaco, and it was all about just trusting the process. It still is, because we're still only in P8 at the moment, but we're just gaining more time as time goes on because the track is getting drier. It's raining less. It's light rain now, and even the spray is a little bit less off these cars. And we're closing up on Verstappen now in the white Red Bull here on lap number 9, and you can see even in the acceleration zone now, I'm actually gaining time rather than losing it as we were on lap 1. I'm not going to lie, it was nervous times on lap 1, thinking this may have been a bit too much of a gamble, but it's now paying off, and out the tunnel, we've got the run on the Dutchman. Down the inside, lock up from us. Verstappen defends very hard and robustly, as you would imagine he would do, and he maintains track position. Fair enough, we couldn't quite get that, but it is very much now time for intermediate. I'll be shocked if these guys aren't coming in on this lap now imminently. Verstappen is losing so much time now to Schumacher as well, trying to fend us off, and now in they come on the mini-map there. Lando's in, Russell as well, Hamilton, Verstappen comes in. We narrowly just managed to lift off the throttle and make sure we don't make contact with him, and we're now going to climb up the order. The two Ferraris, though, have stayed out, as well as Schumacher. Mick Schumacher stayed out. Why has Mick stayed out? I don't know. That's a blunder by him. Hopefully he doesn't lose too much time, but the two Ferraris, I mean, typical Ferrari to stay out on the wet compound, even though it's definitely time for intermediate, but they stay out. It's a 1-2 now for Ferrari. A Sainz from Leclerc. Schumacher stays out, surprising to say, but there you go. Lando's in, Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, all on intermediates. We've got a few other midfield guys staying out a lot longer on the wet compound, like the Ferrari guys, but make no two ways about it. It is time for the intermediates. All these guys will be coming in on the next lap or two, and there they come in now, just ahead of us. We've actually caught up to Mick Schumacher. That's how slow he was going on the full wet, so I wonder where he's going to filter out. Well, Leclerc and Sainz come out in terms of, versus Lando, of course, because remember, Sainz was ahead of Lando Norris in the Ferrari, so let's see, but we're into first place. We're into the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix, and that is checkmate in terms of this F1 chess. That is checkmate. We're into first place, and now it's Monaco. We've just got to try and make sure we hold track position, and we've got a juicy 11-second gap as well to cushion us. But Sainz, surprisingly, he actually stays ahead of Lando Norris, so the Ferrari actually managed to have some okay pace on the full wet tyres, at least Sainz did. Leclerc with a double stack, he got pushed down to P7, so not too great from him. Mick Schumacher, he's not actually lost too much time, to be fair, Mick. He's still ahead of Verstappen there, so Schumacher and Sainz both actually held their own pretty much on the full wet tyres, but it's Sainz behind us then, Norris in third now, Russell fourth, Hamilton fifth, so it's the same pecking order from P2 to P5 that was in P1 to P4, but now we are the ones want in P1. And we've just set the fast lap of the Grand Prix now as we're out 11.4 ahead on lap 12, looking good. And we just try and control that lead now. Lap 15, the gap is still over 10 seconds now, 3 laps later. So this is really promising. We're showing some decent pace, I would say, on the intermediates actually. And I'm feeling pretty comfortable, you know. The tyres are in a good temperature region, of course. We've been on them since, the first lap. So that's looking good. But yellow flags as Lewis Hamilton is not looking good. And he's had a horrendous crash into the first corner. It must have been a horrendous bad lockup of some kind and slippery conditions. And Hamilton is out of the Monaco GP. And the full course safety car is now out. It was virtual, but like we saw in, I think it was Imola, remember, it switched from a virtual to a full safety car after the FIA have thought it's too dangerous to just have the virtual one. So the full course yellow is out, and we're going to see that green Aston Martin safety car ahead of us now. Lap 18 into 19, we're now raring to go. It's going to come in, and we're going to go green once again around Monaco, and our lead has been cut now with the safety car. That's the only annoying thing really here with the safety car. It's eroded that lead we have, that cushion. Although I will say I've got a physical cushion in the form of an Alfa Romeo right here on the restart. Of course, this game has no mechanic to let the lapped cars through, so we've got an Alfa Romeo blocking Sainz in P2 there. So as we get going, we've gone green, and the Alfa Romeo is going to do a great job of blocking Sainz a bit. Sainz actually just doesn't even get a great getaway. So into turn 1, there we go, miles ahead of Sainz then, 1.2 already lost, he has, and Lando as well having to overtake the Alfa Romeo. And there's actually quite a few lapped cars in the middle of this pack then, and there's a massive gap then from Schumacher to Leclerc in terms of, we've only just got going, and that gap is already visually quite large between those two, as him and Verstappen have been held up a little bit. Again, you can see down the hill, down the crest, the Alfa Romeo getting stuck in behind. You've got the other Alfa, I think that is, also being lapped. You've got Guan Yu Zhou in P10 in the Williams, doing a fantastic job there. Guan Yu Zhou in P10, Esteban Ocon P9, Gasly P8, so a bit of a mixed up tail end of the top 10. Ricciardo obviously recovering from a Q2 knockout in P11, and you can see the traffic there continuing to be a nuisance. Of Verstappen overtakes the Alfa Romeo finally at the tunnel. That's when he overtook the Alfa Romeo, at the tunnel. So the lap cars being a bit of a nuisance here. Meanwhile for us, Sainz now is starting to close up a little bit now. The gap is back down to half a second, so we're going to have to get our head down and concentrate. Remember also our tyres are a lot older than everyone behind us. They pit on what was, lap 10, so they've only been on these tyres for 8 laps, 2 of them under, or 3 of them under the safety car conditions, whereas we've had those extra 10 laps. So the tyre wear is there, but at the same time, remember, we are going to get to the slick period. On lap 22, I'm struggling with grip with the lockup on the front left. We almost go a bit too deep into that chicane, and now it's a hallelujah moment. Jeff tells me it's time to switch on to mediums. I wouldn't have thought so, because look how wet it looks, but as we know, well known on F1 2021 on this game, for whatever reason, it can still look this wet, and there you go, DRS enabled. It's time for the slicks. It's time for the dry tyres. So we come in now from first place as we drift into the pit lane entry, and it's time to strap on a set of medium tyres and go to the end of this Grand Prix. Lando's in, Carlos as well, Mick Schumacher, our teammate, he continues on for one more lap. I'm really hoping that doesn't hinder him too much. Again, he goes on for one more lap, kind of, thanks to obviously the way the teamwork strategy works. We can't tell him to pit a lap earlier, or I can't tell him to double stack or whatever, so he continues on for one more lap. Hopefully he doesn't go too slowly, but we're out again now in P3. The only 2 others ahead of us are yet to pit, and that's going to be happening right about now. Lap 24 then, Schumacher, where is he going to place in P3? 4, I think it is. It is P4, so he's slotted in not too badly there actually, just between Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen, but we still lead the way then, half a second ahead of Lando Norris, who, by the way, now has jumped Sainz then. Actually, hang on, I didn't realise that. It was Sainz ahead of Norris, but in the pit stops then, looks like Ferrari had a bit of a slow one, McLaren a quick pit stop, and Lando jumped Sainz in the pit lane. So he's up into P2 then in the McLaren. Lap 24, as the track gets drier and drier, the droplets of rain are still falling slightly across the screen, but it is getting to pure dry period now at the Monaco GP, and we go ahead and set the fast lap of the Grand Prix. Purple, purple, purple everywhere, and myself and Lando look to be in our world of our own, because on the very next lap we set purple, but then Norris sets an even faster lap then, so he is pushing me, and we're both pushing away from Carlos Sainz, who's struggling in this race in the Ferrari now in the dry period. He's actually holding up Schumacher. If you look at the mini-map close enough when you can see those dots, he's holding up Schumacher and Verstappen. And lap 26, things are looking good until...
It's not good news, I'm afraid. Seems like an engine issue. Okay, touch wood. Seems like the fault has resolved itself.
Okay, I don't know what actually happened there. For a brief moment, I was having a heart attack because it sounded like my engineer was going to say I had to retire the car, but then immediately he said it was fixed. So I checked my engine. Engine's okay, a little bit worn here and there, but nothing yellow on the heads-up display. So that was a very peculiar engineer call. So we're going to ignore that and hope that nothing goes wrong in the car now to the end of the Grand Prix. And we're going to continue to push on and try our best to get away from Lando Norris. We set another purple lap on lap 28, but he's just kind of there, remaining within 1 second. So he's just pushing us really hard. Both of us are pushing each other, which is actually, you know, it was really nice at the end of this race, just pushing and pushing and, you know, knowing that, you know, you're both kind of going quicker and quicker and we're both getting away from Sainz. So it very much is just me versus Lando for this win. But at Monaco, obviously, it's Monaco. It's hard to overtake, and even though for pretty much the next, you know, the whole rest of the race, 10 laps, whatever it was, Lando remained within a second, even half a second of us, it's not going to be enough. He wasn't able to make any headway. We've got the speed, you know, we've just made upgrades into this race. Our car is the best car on paper, you know, on the grid now. We've got the Mercedes power unit, so we're matching him in the Mercedes power unit in the back of the McLaren. So there was no, you know, on the main straight, through the tunnel, out the tunnel to chicane, there was no point where he was pressurizing us or even going for a lunge, really. And we're just keeping him at an arm's length and doing what we need to do. And this entire circuit now looks very different to the one we started with. Remember, everyone on full wet tyres, a soaking Monaco circuit. We went on to intermediates, and that was the key of the Formula 1 chess today, and we got checkmate a long time ago, and we've just kept it this entire time, and we're coming through the final corner to win the Monaco Grand Prix finally on this game. We've won Monaco. It's been a long time since we've actually won Monaco, even on F1 2020. I don't think we've won it for a while. So we win the Monaco Grand Prix. We are the kings of Monaco here in the Principality, and we've won for the very first time back-to-back races in a career mode for a long while. That is insane.
It's the one that everyone wants to win, and they've only gone and done it. What a fantastic result here at Monaco. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Without a doubt, the safety car changed everything today. The key to their success was keeping calm and reacting to the situation quickly. We've seen teams in the past throw away wins because they were too hesitant, but here they were decisive, and that's allowed them to take the advantage.
Well, I'm thoroughly exhausted after the excitement of that race, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to our drivers here. They've worked hard to make it up there, and it's great to see them make their way out onto the podium.
The champagne tastes even sweeter this season, I must tell you, because after what we had in Season 2, like, remember where we were in Season 2 at Monaco, and now we're here, top step of the podium alongside Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. Absolutely wonderful stuff. 200 IQ plays worked out for us today from P9 to P1, and we're going to take the lead of the Drivers' Championship. I think that should be Mick Schumacher in the end. Did really well. P4, solid drive there, I'd say, from Mick Schumacher. I was kind of upset that he didn't overtake Sainz. He was stuck behind Sainz for pretty much the entire last stint after the safety car and after he'd come in for the medium tyres. So that was really frustrating. He could have well and truly got a podium, his first podium for the team there. So, you know, it is what it is then. But we take the lead of the championship by 6 points, and it's looking like early doors, myself and Lando pulling away a little bit as we're both being being the most consistent men right now on the grid, and we are only just ahead of Ferrari in the constructors. Of course, Ferrari, Leclerc and Sainz doing a great job this season so far, so it's going to be tough. I'm going to need Schumacher to pull up and do some races like this today a lot more often and beating one of the Ferraris whilst I beat the other one if we want to try and get the Constructors' Championship again. But it's going to be a close fight with them and also McLaren as well. But back-to-back race wins, literally the first time we've done that in I can't even remember. I can't even remember the last time in any career mode series on the channel that we did back-to-back race wins. It's been a long, long while, I must say. So, guys, if you did enjoy that episode, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.